What have you been doing in your quarantine?
Well, I spent the first 3 months being a home mother, and I loved every minute of it, but I had to go back to work. So in going back to work, I have changed up my style a little bit. I call this like my new quarantine like look, where it's like, oh, look at that. What?
Oh, it's like an ascot, but like a face covering ascot.
Normally I'd put it over my ears, but that's like impossible right now.
Oh, that's so cool. That is so cool. It's like
and they have,
it looks so like 50s chic. Like you should be like in New York City, like walking down the street.
But I got like charcoal filters that go inside of them, and I have them in like 4 different colors and like 5 different prints.
Oh my God.
So no matter what I'm wearing, I went for it.
Well, since you have to be in the actual office, I'm sitting in my office because I'm still working from home. I'm one of the privileged few that has had an at-home job since 2 years ago.
Yeah.
So I am in my office, in my kitchen.
Very nice. Yeah, I would give anything for my company to have done the smart thing and been like, you know what, you really don't need to be there. I mean, my office is locked to the public. Like, they can't. So
you're not really in the public eye, but
exactly. But I still am, because they still like I still have to show apartments and stuff. And when we do, we're in masks. But at the same, exactly. So I have had to go back to work, which kind of sucks. But I did buy a bunch of really cute masks. And
hey, I have a bunch of masks, but I rarely go out. So in case you've stuck around, this is Revolution Rosies.
Hi guys, we're back. Holy shit! I mean, it only took me forever giving birth and then us getting back on track.
I mean, listen, we didn't know if we'd see one another during the quarantine, so we just forced it to happen via Zoom. And I think that this is a cool way to do it, because now you can see us.
I can see your pretty face too, and I'm so excited. I've missed you so much.
I know.
You were like in my house like
all
every
the time
week for a while. Yeah,
I know.
It was so good.
I know, and now we have each other this way, and hopefully again in person soon, because I haven't been sick.
No.
I don't leave. I don't leave the house.
You're like, I don't leave the house. We do everything very carefully, social distance, and no one's allowed in the house without a mask on.
Yeah, I mean, listen, like I said, I have plenty of them. I just don't use them because I don't leave. So as you can see by the screen, unless you're listening to the podcast, I'm Vivienne Vega.
I'm Betty LeRoux. Hi.
Hi. Yes, if you haven't listened to us before, this is a podcast about badass women in history and in the present. And today and in the future's podcast, whenever you may be listening, who knows, we will be discussing women in music.
The second I pull this person up and I start talking about her, you're going to be like, oh, this would be the person that you chose?
I bet I already know who it is.
Oh my gosh, you probably don't.
Really?
Are you ready for this? Okay. Yeah. So I'm going to be talking to you today about Hazel Scott.
Hazel!
I know, right?
I wouldn't have guessed that one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to say, like, I did not mean to do a Hazel as my first one back, but once I started thinking about it, I'm like, this is pretty perfect anyways.
That is, yes.
But she is amazing. Hazel Scott was a pianist in the 1930s to 50s. And she did, well, I'll get into everything that she did, but she was a fucking badass. Okay. So I'm going to let you do the actual picture when you set up the videos, but look at this fucking stunner right here. There we go.
Oh my God.
She's a stunner. Gorgeous.
Wow. Yeah.
Right. She's gorgeous. So she was born June 11th, 1920 in the Port of Spain, Trinidad. She was born Hazel Dorothy Scott. Adorable. Yes. To R. Thomas Scott, who was a West African scholar from Liverpool, and Elma Long Scott, which also I realized, which has nothing to do with neither here nor there, but her mother's name was Elma. And her mother was a classically trained pianist and music teacher. And my high school pianist for our choir was Elma.
Well, that's weird.
I know.
You have an awful lot of connections with this.
Right? I thought, I was like, as I was thinking about it, I'm like, oh, Elma Wetzel was like our pianist. And that just made me so happy that there was like that little connection there too. So she was the only child of 5 to make it past 2 years old with her parents. And so she even said that like that kind of had like this added bit of like stress on her, because her mom used to always say like there must have been a reason God wanted you to live. So she had that like little bit of extra. So Hazel, whose mother was a pianist and a music teacher, she discovered the piano at 3 years old when she sauntered up to the piano and by ear started playing a song that her grandmother used to sing to her to sleep for her naps at 3 years old.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, yeah. So it was also said that when her mother was giving piano lessons, she would like scream and yell when the students would play the wrong notes.
Oh.
But she started her like piano playing at 3, and she was just a genius, a piano genius. And so her mom immediately is like, well, now my daughter's my entire life. Like her mother could no longer play concert piano or anything like that because she had this debilitating like wrist problem that happened at some point, and so she couldn't go back to like playing live. So then she just decided to throw everything and shift all of her focus onto her young prodigy. So when Elma and Hazel's father, their marriage fell apart, Elma, her mother, and Hazel moved to America for more opportunity for the young pianist, and in 1924 they ended up in Harlem. So she was actually raised around a lot of music and like the big jazz names and everything like that of the 1920s in Harlem. Her mother worked in a lot of places and tried to play piano and play in nightclubs and do everything she could when she could do it. And all while raising Hazel and pushing her as far as she could with her like musical abilities, because the woman was a prodigy, and I mean like beyond. So and mind you, this is the 1920s, and she is like a young Black girl, which is just like the things that she was able to accomplish because of how hard her mom pushed. Like she talks all the time about how like her mom was her number one support and all of that in her whole life. So she auditioned for Juilliard at 8 years old.
Holy crap.
Yeah, where their admission is 16. The admission age is 16 years old. But from like constant pestering from her mothers and other Black mothers in the community, like she was able to get on stage and audition for Juilliard at 8 years old. Professor Paul Wagner of Juilliard heard her rendition of Rachmaninoff's.
That is a tough one. That's too many letters and
yes.
What is that?
But his prelude in C sharp minor, and he burst into the halls. And so one of the things that I used to research this was a podcast called The Blacklist, and it was a really wonderful telling of Hazel Scott's story. So she was very excited, and I really loved listening to her talk about. She was very passionate, but she said that like she adjusted it because she was 8 and she couldn't reach all the keys. So we busted in and was like, like, oh my gosh, this is amazing, blah blah blah. She's like, well, I can't reach all the keys.
Oh,
I have little tiny hands. And so like he was
struggle.
just
I have the same hand size as like an 8-year-old.
8-year-old like they look like this. So he like burst in the hall. He's like, she's a genius. I have to teach her. Like I have to be the one that like he's like, I know that she's not 16. I know she's super young. I will take her under my own wing, and she will be my own personal, like my own private like protege protege or whatever. So he got permission from the school director, Walter Damrosch, and offered to take her under as his personal student and give her private lessons because she was just so amazing. So by 1933, her mother organized her own Alma Long Scott's all-girl jazz band.
Whoa,
Super fucking cool. And Scott played.
I'm sorry, her mom was the one who had like arthritis or
yeah, something had happened, and
so she's like basically like, I'm gonna live through.
Yeah, she's
then.
like, well, and like. They even talk about, like, I've read a lot of things. I got a lot of my information from like the Smithsonian, and also there was a YouTube episode called "Where Is What Happened to Hazel Scott" that I watched that was really good. But they, you know, like they talk about how like her mother, it wasn't so much like theater mom or anything like that. It was more like her mom saw this talent, and she knew, and Hazel was an extremely ambitious, very extremely ambitious young woman, and her mother did everything she could to like lift her up and continue her going. So she was raised by a very strong woman. She became a very strong woman because of it.
Right.
So anyways, in high school, Hazel hosted her own radio show.
That existed?
Yeah, she won a contest and got to host her own radio show. And she was going to the school during the day and performing at nightclubs at night, like while she was in high school.
Wow.
And then she shared the bill at Roslyn Ballroom with the Count Basie Orchestra at the age of 15. So she was playing like...
Jeez.
Yeah.
I mean, by the time she was at that age, I mean, she had already done as much as... you know, the adults,
10 people, you know, like,
yeah,
like just an amazing amount. Oh, it gets better. And this is crazy that like, you really don't hear of her. So it's just insane. So, and you'll find out why you don't hear about her. There's actually a reason why you don't hear about her. Oh. So by the time she graduated with honors, because you know, why not? Yeah. Why not? She graduated with honors. She had already started to make a name for herself and soon made her way to Broadway, where she debuted in the musical review Sing Out the News. Commercial recording of her Bach to Boogie.
Oh my gosh, adorable.
Yeah. Repertoire on the Signature and Decca labels would break sales record nationwide. So like she immediately gets out of high school, she immediately goes on to Broadway and like starts breaking sales records.
And what year is this? Do you know?
This would have been I want to say she would have been like, this would have been like 38, 39. She would have been 18, 19.
Wow. That's crazy.
So anyways, and her style of music, so what she did was like, she was classically trained pianist, like super amazing pianist. So what she did was she loved playing like calypso, and she loved playing jazz, and she loved like the boogie woogie and all of the like swing and everything like that. So she would take classical music pieces and crank them up with some like swing and jazz and calypso and make them like funky and fun. Mm-hmm. And so it was like this new twist on these old classics. So like it was, people were just going crazy for it. And it was like, essentially it was rambunctious rock and roll. Right. It was swing being played in these concert halls. And it was just like crazy. So she was like an original, like, you know, that, who am I thinking of? Great Balls of Fire, like just like going crazy. And she would do it in these like fantastic gowns, and she was just like coiffed and beautiful and charismatic, just like pounding on these keys like crazy. She's amazing to watch. You have to watch some videos.
Oh, for sure.
When Billie Holiday could not finish her engagement with Cafe Society, which was New York's first integrated nightclub, a 19-year-old Hazel Scott was brought to take over by recommendation from Holiday herself.
Wow.
So at 19 years old, Billie Holiday, she can't finish out her entire, you know, the engagement she had with Club Society, which is, I don't know if you've heard of Club Society. It was a huge club, and it was like the first integrated club.
Yeah.
And so at 19 years old, Hazel Scott gets to come in. Holiday's like this woman. And from that time on, like Holiday and Hazel were very, very, very close, to the point where when Hazel's own mother passed, she kind of latched on to Billie Holiday as like a mother figure. But like they were just very, very close. And I mean, I mean, two fucking amazing women. So,
Oh yeah. Oh gosh, yeah.
Yeah. So Hazel was charming, brilliant, beautiful, beyond talented, and soon she was named the darling of cafe society, winning over the audience with jazz and swing renditions of classical piano pieces. She was the top headliner for both the Uptown and the Downtown Club Society. And by 1945, mind you, she was born in 1920, so she's 25.
25. Oh my gosh. Okay.
At 1925, but by 1945, she was earning $75,000 a year. Do you know what that is in now money?
Now monies? How much? How much in now monies is that?
At 25 years old, as a badass pianist, she was making $1,065,000.
Holy sharts!
Yeah, so she was insanely wealthy because of her brilliant talent at such a young age, and because of this, self-made wealth, because she was so independently wealthy, she pushed the social norms. Like, it's the 1940s, and she refuses to play segregated halls. She won't play any segregated halls. She says, why would anyone come to hear me and refuse to sit beside someone just like me?
Yeah.
So she won't play segregated halls. And then Hollywood comes calling. Like, knock, knock, knock. Hey, Hazel, you want to come to Hollywood? You're gorgeous and amazing, and everyone loves you. Why don't you come to Hollywood? And she's like, sure, but I'm going to make a couple of demands, and I'm not going to do anything unless they're met. So she refused to take any roles in Hollywood that would cast her as like the singing maid. She insisted on having final cut privileges when it came to her appearance. She required control over her own wardrobe so that she could wear her own clothing if she felt the studio's choices were unacceptable.
Wow.
She wouldn't wear no maid uniforms or washerwoman rags, and she would always have to be credited as Hazel Scott as herself. So she refused. She went to Hollywood in the 1940s and said, I'm not playing your games. I will not be, any sort of black characteristic or caricature. I'm not going to do it. And they listened, because there was nothing. I mean, she didn't need them. They needed her. She didn't care about the money they were offering. She was already famous and wealthy. So, so during the filming of The Heat's On, which starred Mae West, Hazel walked out when she found out that the black women that were being portrayed sending them off to war, they were being portrayed in dirty aprons. So literally the wardrobe person was like, these aprons are too clean, you need to dirty them up. And she was like, oh fucking hell no. There is no woman alive that's going to send her man off to die for this country in a dirty apron. They will not be wearing dirty aprons. And she walked off the set. And she held up production for 3 days until they removed the aprons altogether.
Oh.
Yeah, because she was
it's an easy fix. Why?
Yeah. Why did it take 3 days? Why did it take 3 days to not portray these black women as they got to be dirty when they said that? No. Why? No. So she was, so she went on a strike for 3 days, and they finally just removed the aprons altogether.
It's an easy fix, guys.
But, right. Unfortunately, this caused her job in Hollywood. Literally, she never played Hollywood again, and she was like,
oh, because she's a diva?
Yeah, I know. She was like, fuck it, I don't need you guys. Okay, all right, bye. And she said, so she didn't go back to Hollywood. She went back to New York, and she said, I've been brash all my life, and it's gotten me into a lot of trouble. But at the same time, speaking out has sustained me and given meaning to my life, which I just love. She's like, no, causing trouble, it makes me live. I live for that.
Nice.
And so she had the money, she had the means. She was going to challenge the norms.
Yeah.
So super duper badass. And I have to point out, you'll see some really awesome videos of her and everything like that. And you can find the video of her in this Mae West, and you can find tons of videos of her. She's also often seen in this gorgeous white gown playing two pianos and singing.
I've seen that. I just never knew who that was.
That's Hazel Scott.
I've always seen that, and I've never known who that was.
That's her. That's her. She was just
It's nice to put that video to a name, you know?
Oh, yeah.
Like,
she was just so charming and effervescent. Like, you just like, she oozes charisma. You just want to watch her.
Oh, absolutely.
So, you know, she goes back to New York, and then she starts a passionate affair with Baptist minister and married Congressman Clayton Powell Jr.,
Ooh.
a known womanizer.
Ooh.
But the two were infatuated with each other. Like, it was a very, very, like, just infatuation, absolute love. So, in 1945, he leaves his wife and marries her.
Oh.
And they become, like, the power couple, and not just like in like the Black community or in, you know, like in Black society, but in like society as a whole. They are this like huge, well-known power couple. Think like Beyonce and Jay-Z, but like with political pull of, I mean, like they were like the Obamas and the Beyoncés all into.
That's weird.
Like they were just this huge power couple. They were this phenomenal power couple where he was, yeah. So anyways.
So nobody looked down on that situation?
Oh, fuck yeah, they did. Oh, 100%. Okay. Like it was it was frowned upon, but like you couldn't deny them.
Right.
So she takes like a step back from performing and everything and starts like doing the housewife thing for a while, raises, you know, like to raise their son. They give birth to a son, Adam Clayton Powell III. And I was looking up the Adam.
You have to say that Adam is a weird name for that time, right?
Right. It is a little weird. And
it seems very ahead of its time.
Right. Well, he was Adam, and then he was Adam Jr.
Like, I know. Adam was around for a long time before that Adam.
Right. Well, I mean, like, Adam is first man. I'm kidding.
I know. Like, what is...
But it wasn't, like, a popular name until, like, the last, like, weird 30, 40 years. So, anyways, there's, like, Adam Clayton Powell, the, like, fifth or something by now. And they're still in politics. FYI. I looked them up.
Good for them.
Yeah. So
I guess.
So she gives up the limelight for a little while, and you know, to play housewife and raise their son, and then feeling that it was inappropriate for a preacher's wife, a little push by him, she stopped playing nightclubs.
Oh dear.
And instead started touring concert halls across the country.
You know what though? To be fair, she probably deserves to be playing larger venues.
Right, exactly. I mean, like, there's that part of it.
You know?
And it talks a lot about how, and again, The Blacklist is a wonderful podcast that really goes into depth about some of her, like, backstory and everything. And I thought it was really good and it's passionately told. Feeling that it was, like, inappropriate, you know, she starts playing all these like concert halls across the country, which whatever, she's definitely concert hall material at this point. Like, right. Yeah, I'm selling out concert halls. And so anyways, you ready for her next like big step? So in the summer of 1950, Hazel was offered.
So she's only 30 at this point. She's like my age.
She's only 30. Hazel's offered the unprecedented opportunity to have her own TV show.
Wow. Okay, and this is 1950?
50. So it's the Dumont Network. She became the first Black performer to host her own nationally syndicated television show. And she was a solo star of the show. Wow. She performed piano and vocals, singing tunes in one of the 7 languages that she knew.
Come on.
Right?
Come on.
Like, but also, how do we not know about the first Black woman to have her own television show?
I knew nothing.
In 1950.
I knew nothing about it.
These were like 15-minute episodes, and they would run 3 times a week. So she was like,
wow, a powerhouse.
Yeah, and TV shows were all live then because they didn't record them.
Right.
They didn't record TV show.
Dang.
Until, when did they start recording TV shows?
You did an episode on it, and I don't know the year, 1957 or something.
It was when I Love Lucy. Syndicate. Yeah,
I know, and I was like, well, I know you did the episode, but I don't know what year. Don't quiz me on the year. I know the person.
Yeah, so yeah, she would be doing 3 live shows a week.
Jeez.
Like all by herself, 15-minute shows all by herself, singing and playing the piano, and again, you know, ding 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 ding, both pianos at the same time, just going
all while looking beautiful,
all while being like fucking lit. Oh god, that girl. She's a stunner. She's like head to toe.
I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I know, right? It was a decent hit, and like a lot of people, you know, like it was doing really good in the ratings, and everything was going like balls bananas. I don't know what that means.
Balls bananas. I don't know either, but I like it.
Okay, cool.
Keep it.
Until her name appeared in the red channels.
Oh.
Yep.
Well, she's not the only one that we enjoy that has been blacklisted.
So she, you know, like she ended up in the red channels, which was supposedly outing all the celebrity. Fuck, it was QAnon at the time, whatever. But outing all the celebrity, like supposed communist.
Yeah.
So obviously the fact that she was an outspoken civil rights leader, and the fact that she starred, like was a big star at Club Society, which was a suspected communist hangout. Hazel was like a super easy target for the House Un-American Activities Committee. So like they like zoomed in on her like, oh yeah, let's get this girl. She believes in civil rights.
How dare she?
How dare she believe in civil rights? And, you know, so she voluntarily went in front of the HUAC on September 29th, 1950, to stand up for herself and say, like, I'm not a communist. I'm not a communist sympathizer. And they're like, yeah, but you performed for 9 of these communist organizations. And she's like, I'm a performer. I've only heard of one of them, and if you hire me, I play. So like, I don't know. It wasn't, and I don't know if it was like actually performing for the organizations, or if it was like, there's this event and a section of this event has like communist organizations in it. Or I mean, it was the House of Un-American Activities Committee. Who knows if there were even actual communists there? They were just running after people at that point.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But she was like, I'm a performer. If there's communist in the audience, I don't always know.
Right.
Like,
I don't ask them before they come in.
Right. And it's not like they were like, we need you to do this communist convention. And she was like, yeah, sounds great. No, she was just like, you give me $1 million, I'm going to come play my piano. It's what I do. It's what I do for a living.
Right.
So she was like, no, you know, like, I'm not a communist. And she gave them facts, like, you know, like facts that could back up facts. She was very poignant. She was like, she told the truth. There was nothing that they actually could have her on, because she wasn't part of the Communist Party. She wasn't a communist or a communist sympathizer. And so she ended her defense by saying, she said, may I end with one request? And this is that your committee protect those Americans who have honestly, wholesomely, and unselfishly tried to perfect this country and make the guarantees in our Constitution live. The actors, musicians, artists, composers, and all of the men and women of the arts are eager and anxious to help, to serve. Our country needs us more today than ever before. We should not be written off by the vicious slander of little petty men. She's like,
whoa, she went in.
Like, I don't know.
I'm not holding back. You didn't hold back on me, bitch.
Exactly. Well, and it's just like, it makes me think of like all the hearings that are happening now, and like the AOCs and everybody that are
absolutely.
Just like going in. And like, it was happening then. And they even brought up again, like, oh, well, you performed for Soviet troops. And she was like, yeah, during World War I, when they were all like our allies, and we like, a lot of people performed for Soviet troops, right? Because they were our allies. We were performing with them,
right?
Why would you?
I'm not the only one. Like,
no. Also,
but of course, they put everybody that would perform for them on the list because they were going after everyone.
But I'm like, yeah, we did it as our duty to the war. Like, yeah, to be American. Like, anyways, so as passionately and as truthfully as she had testified, the damage was already done. And her show was canceled a week after the hearings. And then her bookings started to dwindle and her marriage started to crumble. And she suffered a nervous breakdown in 1951. I didn't find it anywhere else, and I don't want to dwell on it, but I believe that this was when she did her, maybe, I couldn't find the exact dates, but she took a bunch of pills at one point. And I think this might have been the first time that happened, because she suffered a nervous breakdown. Like literally, like whole, your name is on the red list, and it took her entire life, her entire career, everything she worked for, just like ripped it out from under her. And for the first time ever, like she's always been a woman in control, a woman in power, and
I mean, since she was 3, clearly.
Since she was 3, yeah. So she's always been there, and then suddenly she's not. And so like it probably took a huge toll on her, and then her marriage is crumbling, and after 11 years and much cheating by her womanizing husband, she packed herself and her son and left for Paris in 1957. So her and her son like pack up and they're like, we're heading to Paris, and then the couple later divorced in 1960. So she was like estranged from him for 3 years after they like moved to Paris. And when they divorced in 1960, he was basic and married his secretary.
Basic.
Mm-hmm. Of course he did.
Basic.
Uh-huh. Okay, so her home in Paris became like the to-do hangout and pub for like jazz aficionados.
That's way cooler.
Yeah, and she started to like sway away from her boogie woogie style and into more like jazz piano.
Cool.
And then on a brief visit to the States in 1955, she recorded Relaxed Piano Moods. I'm sorry, it couldn't have been in 1955 because she was a brief visit to the, I think I have those dates wrong, and I don't know where I messed it up, because she moved to Paris in 57, but it says that she recorded this in 55, so I have some dates messed up there somewhere. Anyways, she did Relaxed Piano Moods with Charlie Mingus and Max Roach on the debut label, which is an album that is now considered by jazz critics and aficionados as one of the most important jazz recordings of the 20th century.
Jeez.
Most recent, it was introduced into the National Public Radio's Basic Jazz Record Library.
Now she's basic.
So after a decade of living abroad, she came back to the States in 67. But when she came back to the States in 67, she found that music had left her behind. She had spent her, adult life essentially playing boogie woogie and jazz and swing, and music had moved from that to like Motown, and British Invasion was starting, and so like the music had passed her on. She was no longer the hot thing, and so she continued to play at nightclubs, and she even had a part on a soap opera. On a soap opera called One Life to Live.
Still going.
Yeah, so
that's still going.
She had a bit part there, and then on October 2nd, 1981, Hazel died of cancer at Mount Sinai. Thank you. Hospital.
Because it doesn't spell like that.
No, in Manhattan, and she was buried at Flushing Cemetery in Queens, New York, near Louis Armstrong, John Hudgens, and Dizzy Gillespie.
Wow. So, well, she's with the legends there too.
She is with the legend, and she is such a legend.
Oh, absolutely.
I had so much fun like researching her. The videos are just amazing fun. I definitely suggest that YouTube video. What Happened to Hazel Scott, I believe is what it was called. And
What Happened to Hazel Scott? Let
me double check and make sure, but I'm pretty sure that's the name of the YouTube video that I watched. And Whatever Happened to Hazel Scott. It was fantastic.
Okay.
It was done by Eva Goldine. And then I would definitely check out The Blacklist, the podcast. I I don't know that they're still doing things, but she, like I said, it was such a passionate, fun telling of Hazel Scott's story. And like, you could tell that she was like really into it, and she got some stuff that I didn't quite get. And that's my story about Hazel Scott, who is a mama of rock and roll, who you've never heard about.
I loved it. Thank you. That was amazing.
I'm glad you liked it.
That was amazing.
And I knew the second I talked about like the 2 pianos and like the white dress, you're like, oh, I've seen that. You see it everywhere.
Absolutely, I have. And I would never have realized it. So that was an amazing story, and I loved it.
Thank you.
And I would never have known that. I thought you were going to do,
think of all the first that she
Sister
did.
Rosetta Tharpe or something like.
That's who I figured you thought I was doing.
Because when you were texting me, I was like, oh, okay, she's going to do somebody that Elvis stole from.
Yeah,
probably.
Yeah, I thought about it. Like, that was actually my first thought. Of course, that was my first thought.
Oh yeah.
And then I was like, just kind of like forgotten women of rock and roll, and and Hazel Scott popped up, and like she literally got everything was stolen from her because of the red list. Because she got blacklisted. Because that
could easily happen again so quickly.
It could. It absolutely could. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it does mirror a lot of what's going on right now. And I think it's a great story to tell because of it. Like, she was a huge civil rights activist.
Yeah. Well, the women in politics right now, are getting a lot of shit just for being progressive women. Yeah. So.
And she was not going to back down. No. Think of all the first that she did that, like, you should have heard about that. She was the first Black woman to have her own television show.
Absolutely.
Like, on a major network.
And how young she was when she went to Juilliard, and like all of that.
The fact that she had a radio show at 15, and I don't know what radio shows were like in the 1930s, but like,
all I know is like Orson Welles. That's like all I can think of.
But at the same time, I'm like, I can't imagine that everyone it wasn't like a podcast.
No,
everyone had
it. No. It's definitely not like that. But
so anyways, she was a lot of fun.
So that was Hazel Scott, the forgotten mama of rock and roll.
Yeah,
I would say, right?
Yeah, very much a forgotten mama of rock and roll.
Well, keep on smearing lipstick
and raising hell. Bye.